Making 24 games in 24 months as a solo game developer. That is the speech I'm going to be presenting now. So let's get into the presentation itself. I'm going to share maybe a little unpopular opinion in making games, but an opinion which I think many of us can relate to. Within the next 20 minutes, I will be taking a look into the following topics. Making 24 games in 24 months, what is it about? We'll take a look into the current Steam markets. We think for a moment of what is a good game, since I think that's not obvious how we can or should determine it. Then we're going to find more human perspective for the word business. It shouldn't be as cold as we usually think it is. As a disclaimer, I think it's not only about money and performance. Then we'll think about the importance of data and community, and finally how the luck factor affects our work. But first, very briefly, I'm Klaus the Tester Kääriäinen, and I've been in the game industry since 2009. I've always been more or less indie throughout my career. I worked in various fields in the industry, establishing and burying game companies, mentoring them, seeing companies rise to the top and others fall right from the beginning. Nowadays, I'm chasing my dreams to being a solo game developer. Not that I don't like to work with other people, but this is just something I wanted to try for a very long time. I'm also a father to 3 kids. As a family, we are actually building the Seeker universe, which started me telling bedtime stories to my kids, but ended up becoming the universe I'm working as a full-time job as a solo game developer. But now, to the meat and bones of this speech. I'm currently making 24 games in 24 months. Last week I shipped my first game on Steam and itch.io, the Seeker Quest. So there are 23 games to be coming. Each of them will be released at the last day of every month. But what is this stunt? Why do I do it? First of all, it's a research stunt. It's a learning journey. But not only for myself, but to fellow game developers as well. I want to share all my findings, data, discoveries, and everything that I possibly can to other game developers. Like mentioned, I'm a teacher and a mentor. Instead of waving my consultant hands, I want to actually do things and learn from them and share these findings. I feel that this is one of the best ways to offer actual value through my content. I share most of the stuff free on my Patreon, but each of the games that I release are behind a paywall. You can actually become a member right now. Take out your phone or hop into that link, patreon.com/chestercraft, and hit the join for free button. But hey, making games is fun. Or at least it should be. What I've discovered that the more I dive into the business side and by the book of making games, the less I enjoy the creation process itself. I've been there. Chasing the best KPIs, building marketing campaigns for specific audiences, designing games to fit the behaviors of some target group. Don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong in doing such, but for me it was never the core reason why I started making games in the first place. We all come from different backgrounds, why we ended up making games, and that's beautiful. Each of us have our own so-called root cause why it happened. I feel that this specific root cause is the reason why we keep doing it. But in today's very saturated markets, it's harder than ever to make profitable games, which may start directing our work, directing it into directions which we may not enjoy that much. There are more and less rules and guidelines we need to follow to build something that is less risky to develop. And by less risky, I mean something that has a clearly defined core audience. Because discoverability is a big issue these days, it's much less risky to build a game that is easy to understand by a specific target group. Heck, the game can fail on the very day when you pick your genre already. If that specific genre is too competitive or too small in size, you may have failed before you even start to developing the game itself. This leads us, or at least myself, to easily pick more safe choices. This affects the design process drastically, which ultimately may affect the fun factor of the whole development process. I don't say this to demotivate you or myself, but there is something I've discovered myself, and that is the big picture of making games. Maybe it's not only about the one game release you'll be doing. Maybe it's more than that. No matter how good game you develop, there are still chances that it won't get discovered. To be exact, around 80% of the games released on Steam won't get discovered. And I bet that number is even higher on mobile. In business like the game industry, it's even more important to find more creative ways in making games. Not only from the design perspective, but how we build our whole business. Because it's very unlikely that your good game will get discovered. By counting into that one single release, your odds in building a sustainable business becomes rather low. We need more than a good lottery ticket. But hey, what is a good game? How do we even define that? Did you enjoy making that specific game? Did it hit the top charts? Best case, it'll be both, but it's just very unlikely. And that's okay, as long as you know what you're after here. If you're here for the money, congratulations, you don't need to think that much of the process, since your motive is to find the best solutions to make big bucks. The metrics are rather clear to determine, is the game good or not? Maybe you did all by the book, followed each guideline, but couldn't just get a good game out of it. The sales were bad and you're left hanging, what did we do wrong? What if you're here to enjoy the development process itself? Joke's on you, the metrics for a good game is now much harder to specify. Even though if you enjoyed the process, the sales may be, or most likely are, very bad. Which leaves us thinking, was the game good or not? Maybe you saw the good in the game, but you couldn't translate it to any audience. That doesn't necessarily mean that the game is bad, but it just was in the wrong place, wrong time, wrong platform, and your communication was not just clear enough, or whatever. So whatever your definition for a good game is, building that good game is no longer enough. It won't really promise you anything. Maybe it's not only about building that one good game. Maybe we should focus more into building the business itself. Instead of taking shortcuts, maybe we need to focus on the big picture rather than a single release. Let me explain. Business is a cold word, I know, but it's just the best I figured out. The business should be that root cause of mine, the reason why I started making games in the first place. So ask yourself, what is your root cause? But in other words, am I building a game or a business? So what's the difference anyway? Am I chasing those shortcuts of short-term victories, or maybe each of these short-term actions take me towards my long-term goal? I love making games, and I bet many of you here do as well. So you may be super passionate in making that specific game, but maybe we forget the bigger picture while at it. Why are we doing this? What is the big picture in this? What is the business we are after here? As you can see within the pictures, there's a lot of short-term actions I've taken already. None of these hit the top charts. But the process of creating these has been something I'm truly passionate about. I've created a card game for my kids to learn math. I've got funding and made a virtual reality game to our universe, which we built within our family. Those bedtime stories became something tangible, something we are super proud of. We've organized art gallery to showcase our universe. We have t-shirts, plush toys, and even a small community of people waiting for our next release. And I'm just getting started here. For me, personally, I've discovered that my root cause in making games is to make those small and experimental games, which is part of that universe of ours. But also to share this whole journey to people, from which they can get value from. I've already noticed that this journey of mine has become a big inspiration for many people. And that, my friends, is the highest praise I can get from my work. The reality is that these games won't become hit games. I've acknowledged it, and that's not my goal. Sure, it's beautiful if it happens, but that's not something I'm expecting. Instead of chasing for that lottery ticket or that one hit game. I'm going to take small, concrete steps towards that long-term goal of mine to be able to continue doing this. But how do I build a long-term goal? Now, it's much easier because I know what I'm after here. The business side of things now make more sense, since I'm no longer chasing for that super hit. I'm looking for ways to continue doing this, to make those experimental games and continue the universe building and share my findings to others. But it all needs to start from identifying that idea I'm actually inspired and even passionate about. And that idea is not a single game. It's the business I'm after. So each of my short-term actions, be it the next blog post, game release, social media post, or anything related, are all leaning towards that ultimate goal of mine. Which leaves us wondering, how can one determine a long-term goal? Or ultimate cause, or whatever you want to call it. Sure, it can be something personal, but to communicate it, we should think how we do it. So it needs to be something super simple to explain. That is a rabbit right there. It needs to be easily relatable. Something that people who share the same mindset like you can understand what you're after. And most importantly, it needs to be something that you or your team are super excited about. So maybe, just maybe, making 24 games in 24 months is something other like-minded people out there can understand, find relatable, and maybe even get excited about. I'm no longer just making a game. I'm building a story. So maybe I'm not just building a game. Maybe I'm not just cutting stones here. Maybe I'm building bricks for something. Each of my short-term actions should bring at least two things: data and community. Data helps me to understand when I'm doing something that brings traction. Without the data, I'm just blindly doing things and hoping for the best. The data helps me to point out things I should focus more and where to focus less. Community comes when I'm able to give value to them. And when that happens, each of my short-term actions will bring more long-term awareness. My next release will not be for 5 people. Maybe it's for 10, 20, or 1,000. Whatever the number is, the aim is that it would be higher after each short-term action. Slowly, but bigger. And if I'm able to build an environment like this, it's much easier for myself to dedicate into that long journey and put in the effort. Without the data, I'm blind. Without the community, I'm not bringing any value. Together, I feel that it's inevitable to build something interesting and valuable. And if that is the case, it all boils down to the final challenge: time. But when I have the passion to keep going and clear enough long-term goal to stay committed, I'm more able to put in the effort. And when combining effort with time, the luck will eventually start finding me. And in the end, luck is precisely what I'll need in today's competitive markets. Because making that good game is no longer enough. But we shouldn't see luck as something that just comes randomly. It's something that is a cause of a lot of short-term actions that were directed by the long-term goal. And that's the environment I want to build with this given stunt. Since when things take time, problems occur. I know, and I think you know as well, they will come. Be it the team-related challenges, accidents, financial challenges, or whatever, those will come. But if your platform is steady, if my vision is clear, it's much easier to start tackling the challenges, because I know where I'm heading. And if you ask me, that's the biggest strength one can possess within the industry of ours, knowing where you're heading and why. So, am I building a game or a business? Maybe I'm not just cutting stones. Maybe these bricks are for something. Maybe I'm building a cathedral. My cathedral is to help others succeed. By providing experiences and knowledge from my journey, I'll build small and experimental games from which I and everyone in this room can learn from through my content. And while at it, I'm going to have fun, not just after it. This stunt of mine is not only for myself. It's for everyone to get insights and inspiration, and that is the fuel for my work, if I'm able to achieve that. Now, here is a free wish from me, which can bring value for you, but for myself as well. Take out your phone, go to patreon.com/chestercraft, hit the join for free button, and then stay tuned for some upcoming devlogs, articles, and experimental games from which you can hopefully learn something from. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see you in my Patreon as a free member. Thank you and have a great day. Cheers. Bye bye.